I'm trying to help Coinbase effectively bridge the gap between crypto and finance. So Bitcoin is just a no-brainer to bring to a chain like Monad to enable users to borrow against their existing Bitcoin, to buy and sell Bitcoin. It really, I would say, is the lifeblood of many ecosystems, DeFi and then Bitcoin specifically. And a newer ecosystem like Monad presents like a really interesting opportunity for a new set of users and a new set of applications to build up and grow latent liquidity around an asset like cbBTC.
Today, I am joined by Andrew Allen, Senior Protocol Specialist at Coinbase. We are going to unpack the cbBTC announcement. cbBTC is a $5 billion plus asset backed by Coinbase, which is now live on Monad via Chainlink CCIP. Andrew, it is awesome to have you here today. Welcome to the podcast, and definitely excited to break this down. But before we do, got to give the listeners a little bit of an intro. What is your focus at Coinbase, and what was your role in bringing cbBTC to Monad?
Hi, yeah, I'm Andrew. I work at Coinbase, and my role is pretty unique. I primarily work with our product teams across different products to bring them into a crypto context. So Coinbase Wrapped Bitcoin is a very relevant product to myself. I've worked closely with our team to bring that to market all the way back when we launched it, probably almost 18 months ago now. But when we think about a product within the context of crypto, I think a lot of people within the Coinbase org are more focused on the user experience from a traditional product sense. And that the blend that I bring to products is one that is, how does the ecosystem that we're building in understand and use our product, and how are the more crypto native users experiencing what we're building? So I'm trying to help Coinbase effectively bridge the gap between crypto and just finance. That's a bit of a mouthful, but at the end of the day, something like cbBTC, my job or my role within that is to bring it to market. And as it relates to bridging it to Monad, we've selected Chainlink as our exclusive bridging partner for Coinbase Wrapped assets. And this will be the first bridged expansion of cbBTC. This expansion will live on Base as a hub, but you have chains like Monad that can connect to that via CCIP and get an instantiation of Coinbase Wrapped Bitcoin on their home chains. So for users on Monad, I think the exciting aspect of this is when you look to hold Bitcoin within Monad, you can now hold cbBTC, and you can treat it as fungible one-to-one with Bitcoin, and you can always check Coinbase's proof of reserves to verify that there's Bitcoin backing the underlying asset. So when you want to go redeem your cbBTC, if you ever do, you can send it back to Base and then send it back to your Coinbase account and receive just Bitcoin on Coinbase. There's no fees for minting or burning. I know I've probably said a lot there, and I don't know if this was too much of an intro, but that is what's going on.
No better intro than just diving right into the announcement. I think that's what people are ultimately here for, and it's a super exciting one at that. Would love to double click because you talked about the user experience side a little bit, and kind of mentioned that you're also focused on, you know, the ecosystem impact and almost like ecosystem enablement as well. And so I'm curious, like, for anyone who's not familiar, like, how might this impact the Monad ecosystem? What can users do now that there's this clear path for cbBTC to be available on Monad?
Totally. Yeah. So cbBTC and Bitcoin in general is still the biggest crypto asset. It is hands down the one that is held by the most users and is, just from a market cap perspective, the largest. And when an ecosystem is building their own set of DeFi primitives, building off of the existing assets within an ecosystem is super helpful. So Bitcoin is just a no-brainer to bring to a chain like Monad to enable users to borrow against their existing Bitcoin, to buy and sell Bitcoin. And it really, I would say, is the lifeblood of many ecosystems, DeFi and then Bitcoin specifically. So I think from my perspective, cbBTC on Monad uniquely allows a bustling economy to start forming around Bitcoin. And there's a few nuances here, but at a high level, the fact that cbBTC has no mint or burn fees, it can lead to a really liquid form of Bitcoin on a given chain. So Coinbase doesn't directly monetize cbBTC. And when you think about a user that's just buying or selling Bitcoin, they don't necessarily know if they're on Monad or another chain. But they do realize if the price is different from what they would expect. And they might be comparing prices across opportunities. So the fact that it is super liquid, has zero mint or burn fee, allows for super efficient markets to be built around the core asset that crypto is born from.
Yeah, definitely. And you talked a little bit about the availability of this asset kind of kickstarting growth and kickstarting ecosystem activity, DeFi activity for an ecosystem. And Monad's at this interesting spot in that it's 3 months old. Mainnet's been live for 3 months. And Coinbase also supported Monad from a pre-launch stage, including day one custody support and the launch of the Mon token as the first token on Coinbase's new token sale platform. For cbBTC, what gave Coinbase the confidence to move now?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, we're always looking to enable every ecosystem, but there's only so many hours in the day, so many resources. And I think when taking a step back here, I think we would love to be everywhere, but there has to be choices made at some point. And I think in our partnership with Chainlink to help expand wrapped assets, cbBTC being the biggest of those, we wanted to start somewhere where there was clear demand and a clear opportunity to grow cbBTC. So some places aren't necessarily, there's always a rise and fall, an ebb and flow to crypto. And in a newer ecosystem like Monad, I would say presents like a really interesting opportunity for a new set of users and a new set of applications to build up and grow latent liquidity around an asset like cbBTC. So there's a bit of this that is not necessarily our choice. I think the market decides where they want to use assets, and that's what we want to enable. Is we want to give the market, we want to give the users and participants of the market the opportunity to build on top of Bitcoin. But it's up to users like yourself to go and use it or build upon it. And these days, it seems like everybody's a builder. So there's not really any restrictions as it relates to what can happen here. And I think myself included, like DeFi is why I came to crypto. And so it's just exciting to enable like another cohort and set of builders to further their dreams.
Definitely. For anyone who's not particularly familiar with Monad yet, this might be news. If folks are more familiar with Monad, they've probably heard this quite a bit. But one of the core use cases that Monad is really built for and designed for is high frequency finance fully on the blockchain. And Bitcoin is interesting in that it is the largest crypto asset, the most well-known crypto asset, but it's been the hardest to make productive on chain. And I'm curious, as you see blockchains mature, become more and more performant, we're certainly seeing more and more tokenization from traditional finance, more and more interest in blockchain and crypto as a true solution for the future of finance. What changes or what happens, what's unlocked when you put Coinbase Wrapped Bitcoin on a chain that is built for high frequency finance?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've mentioned this prior, but when I think of cbBTC being uniquely positioned, I think of the fact that it's got a zero mint or burn fee, and it's anybody with a Coinbase account has the ability to mint or burn it. So there's the accessibility and like sort of the liquidity aspects. And when a marketplace is looking to form, I think like the purest form of collateral is the one that's like the most secure, the most liquid, the one that the people have the most access to. And I'm really excited to see how quickly cbBTC has grown. And I think that's an indication that the market really appreciates those qualities about it. So at a high level, there's that. I will say that getting into the nuance of crypto applications today, and I think there's just a general sense that we've got trading. Anybody can trade any asset anywhere. There's tons of trading platforms. DeFi applications built around lending or borrowing have, I would say, reached a certain point of maturity, although there's certainly still a ton of competition there. But I would say the floodgates are still sort of there and have not been opened yet for a whole new set of activity around um, cheaper forms of leverage, cheaper forms of, I would say, active participation in um, like price speculation on the thing outside of just like buying spot or selling spot. And I think that when you have a sort of high performance blockchain like Monad, you have the opportunity to build applications that you wouldn't necessarily have on Ethereum mainnet or otherwise. So there's definitely new classes of applications that are still super interesting. And I mean, we've seen with Hyperliquid at least that sort of decentralized perp exchanges are still fairly new, and there's still uh, not necessarily a clear winner there. So I'm excited to just see what the Monad ecosystem, especially from the performant EVM ecosystem, can do with an asset and what unique capabilities they can unlock for users.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite exciting to me as well. I think, there's been a number of applications and innovations that we've seen already in just the first 3 months of mainnet for Monad that, add a little bit of weight to this value proposition of high frequency finance that can be done fully on chain, permissionlessly, and from a decentralized chain at that. To name a few examples: order book markets, high frequency liquidations, fully on chain perps, as well as others. Curious if you have any kind of broad thoughts on where high frequency finance is going and where TradFi kind of meets crypto native.
I would say one really interesting thing that I've been watching closely is um, like there's a ton of correlation between markets. Bitcoin will sort of like follow the Nasdaq index and vice versa, depending on which trading hour it is. And one thing that I think Bitcoin is very liquid, but it's like liquid around the clock, 24/7, um, which is not true of all assets. In fact, it's like most of these assets only have a market open on certain hours on certain days. And so I think the evolution of crypto, and one thing that's like super interesting to me is how do we, one, enable more assets to come on chain and form their own liquidity to be traded 24/7 because news happens around the clock. Like we can't just wait on a stock exchange to open. And how do we think about positioning crypto assets as unique hedges, as unique packages alongside these assets to enable crypto assets to like continue growing alongside productive assets like stocks or other commodities like gold? And I'm really excited for one part of my job is like just thinking about these things holistically, but I'm really excited because it feels like the rubber's about to meet the road. Um, Hopefully, this market structure bill, which everybody's been talking about for a long time now passes, and the opportunities to build are now like very clearly lined out. And for at least users or builders like myself in the US, it makes it something that's possible and wasn't previously. So when I think about, and I've probably lost track of like the original question here a bit, but when I think about like the unique positioning of crypto markets relative to traditional markets, I think a ton about access and uh, liquidity for these assets at any given hour. So at 24-hour trading is one aspect, but just on the weekends as well allows more efficient markets in many ways. And I'm excited for a future where like Bitcoin's not always the hedge. I'm sure we've all seen it where news breaks on a weekend or on a Friday afternoon after markets have closed, and Bitcoin's the only liquid asset for people to sell. And I'm excited for a day where other assets can be sold irrespective of their correlation. Um, anyways,
Yeah, fair enough. Kind of on the cbBTC angle specifically, knowing this is an area you focus on a lot, probably think about 24/7. Um, what would you say is like the success case? Say we're, a year down the road here. What do you want to see where you can look back at this and be like, okay, this was definitely the right move to bring cbBTC to Monad, and here's what we're seeing.
yeah. So I think there's a few things here. Um, when I think about success for Coinbase Wrapped Bitcoin, I specifically think about like the liquidity for the asset. Has there been like a unique set of participants form around this asset and build new markets, sort of net additive? So has it expanded the amount of liquidity for the underlying? And two, uh, has the usage of this asset grown the reason people want to hold it? Like, is there, I think that in an ideal state, these things are self-sustaining. So, um, we as Coinbase, again, are not positioned to necessarily like pay incentives on cbBTC, but it's really great to see cbBTC grow irrespective of what money or resources we put behind it, which just means to me there's like a organic demand to use and hold and borrow against or do whatever you want with Coinbase Wrapped Bitcoin. So success, it's hard to put numbers to it. I think the one thing that I do track closely is Bitcoin the sort of largest asset within the context of DeFi yet? Um, until the answer is yes, like I'm not satisfied. And there's like a bit of me that I wouldn't consider myself a Bitcoin maxi, but I do think that there's still a fair ways to go for usage of Bitcoin and DeFi. And the gap between like the market cap percentage of Bitcoin and the usage of Bitcoin and DeFi, I think just speaks to the fact that we're still early on usage of Bitcoin and DeFi specifically.
Yeah, and why is that? Because I was talking to someone recently, and they made a similar point, but we didn't have a long enough conversation to really get into the details there. But it just seems almost a little bit like counterintuitive. Like, if Bitcoin is by far the most widely held, widely known crypto asset, why is it not more productive in DeFi? And is that something that cbBTC is really looking to solve?
Yeah, I think it's tricky. So Bitcoin doesn't bridge cleanly to another chain. There's not perfect opportunities for people to bridge Bitcoin into a given DeFi ecosystem. And it's kind of hard to do DeFi on the Bitcoin network itself. So the access to the asset is somewhat guarded. I think Coinbase has a unique positioning here in the sense that we are the most longstanding and most trusted US exchange. And so for our users, it's really no different than holding Bitcoin on Coinbase. And whenever a user can understand that it's sort of fungible with the Bitcoin they already have hold on Coinbase. They can send it to a self-custodial wallet and hold that cbBTC within a context that they want to now use it in DeFi. Um, I think it's a big unlock for that set of users. Now, who's to say that this enablement really doesn't like it's hard to say that Coinbase is going to capture a meaningful share of all Bitcoin issued, but for our users in specific situations where they want to borrow against their assets, we do enable that at scale. And uh, I think the trust assumptions matter a lot. People have emotional attachments and have put a lot of resources and time into accumulating Bitcoin, and it's a huge responsibility to secure that and do so in a way that they can trust that this thing's going to maintain its value for the many, many years ahead. And so we don't take that responsibility lightly. I think Coinbase invests a ton in our security posture and how we manage customers' assets on behalf of them as a custodian. So the underlying assets being secure is just the biggest unlock, I think, for most users. And there's another aspect of this, which is I'll come back to it again and again. The fact that we charge no fee on minting and burning is a huge unlock because the business model for most Bitcoin wrappers is fairly difficult to operate. You have to charge a fee on minting or burning because where else are you going to charge it? And then you have a difficulty scaling that operation because there's now friction to getting the asset or to getting out of the asset. I think Coinbase being positioned as an exchange does have the benefit of potentially increased trading volumes on the underlying asset where all these markets are arbitraged amongst each other. And that really does help us justify scaling this asset and bringing it to more crypto ecosystems because otherwise it's sort of an unsustainable product to operate. You're kind of either doing it as a public good, which in this case, to an extent, Coinbase is, or you're trying to make money off of it, in which case it's somewhat difficult to do. And that's at least what we've seen others run into.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. And I think, most of our conversation thus far has generally been kind of geared around the crypto native DeFi user, with, some kind of relevance for the institutional audience. But imagine that, I am an institution with, or a representative of an institution with Bitcoin exposure, looking at on-chain yield, and structured products as well. What would be the pitch for why cbBTC on Monad matters?
Yeah, I think, um, and I'm not going to speak for all institutions, but I think for those that are pursuing yield on top of Bitcoin, one of the things that matters most to them is the position in which they're borrowing against. So the primary trade that I've seen is where a user will borrow against Bitcoin and then use that borrowed asset to go make money elsewhere. So whether you're a market maker and you just want to be long Bitcoin but you want to also use use it in an efficient manner, or you're a passive fund and you hold Bitcoin on your balance sheet, and you see an opportunity to earn a given yield on a longer tail stable, and you're willing to borrow against your assets in Bitcoin to go pursue it. So the opportunity for cbBTC on Monad specifically is unique in the sense that I would say newer ecosystems, um, there's always, I would say, a perceived risk with something that's new, especially in the context of crypto where trust comes with a premium. And within these new ecosystems, the people that are out on the frontier, the users, the institutions that are willing to evaluate the risks for themselves and pursue them, effectively taking the trade, you get the benefit of that. So there's a difference between perceived risk and the actual risk you're taking. And so for a user that's wanting to generate yield on their Bitcoin, looking into the newer ecosystems, looking into the newer opportunities to generate yield against your assets, are generally where there's more money to be made, albeit it takes work. You have to put in the due diligence and understand what risks you're taking and make a decision for yourself. So I think it's always exciting to expand the set of opportunities for an asset like cbBTC. And generally speaking, if there's a trade to be taken and it's at scale and it's on Ethereum mainnet, there's plenty of whales that have already taken it. And so when you look at a new expansion for an asset and you see an opportunity, it's less likely that someone else has taken it. And you also have the benefit of being the first one in. And being early to anything crypto, I would say has been time and time again, like one of the better decisions you can make.
Yeah, definitely. And early is really the theme here across the board. It seems to be kind of a new era for crypto overall and a really exciting one. And at least for Monad as an ecosystem and my perspective from Monad Foundation is that it really is a game of compounding growth and chipping away at creating better and better experiences that unlock new opportunities for the user at the end of the day. And that's certainly the case for Monad DeFi. That's certainly the case for the Monad ecosystem. And this announcement in really the early innings of Monad mainnet definitely takes the DeFi ecosystem to the next level. We are recording this prior to this actually being fully 100% live and public, but when this podcast is released, this all will be public. And there's a number of DeFi applications already on Monad, fully live on mainnet, that are going to be able to take advantage of this. So definitely really exciting times. And I will open it up for you, Andrew, if you have anything else that you'd like to cover or call out as part of this specific announcement or beyond.
Yeah. I think we've covered a good bit of material here. To answer more concisely, I think I love your mentality of focusing on the user. I think that's the driving force between any product and any adoption that it gains. The user experience for cbBTC in particular is something that we focused on quite a bit, making sure that people understand when they just search cbBTC in their Coinbase app, it should show like, hey, do you mean cbBTC? Well, that doesn't actually exist on Coinbase. You got to send it on chain in order to create it. Little things like that really do matter. I'm super excited for the Monad ecosystem to come into its own and build for its unique set of users. I think crypto really is at an interesting point in time. Sentiment, some would say, is at all-time lows, roughly. Like, things are tough out there. It's hard to be profitable. But when it comes to focusing on users and solving real problems for them, you're always going to be focused on the right things and not getting caught up in short-term games.
Couldn't agree more, for sure. Andrew, thank you very much for joining today. Really appreciate the insight. Super exciting announcement in that cbBTC is now live on Monad, at least when this podcast is released. So thanks again, Andrew. We'll have to run this back within 6 months to a year to talk about how things are going and potentially some new exciting innovations as well being presented, always with the users in mind. But thanks again, Andrew. Really appreciate you joining.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to Chainlink. I think none of this would be possible without our exclusive bridge partner in Chainlink.
Definitely.